two daughters. I've been broken. But I try to be firm. You have to be firm. You're not going to be mean and nasty. You don't have to be antagonistic. You don't have to be provocative. You just got to be firm. Now, whenever you're going to ask a tough question and it's uncomfortable, there are some tips. A lot of you guys have heard me say this. What do you do when you have to ask a tough question? Therese.
Hi, good morning. Okay, I have to ask a tough question.
Yeah.
Pause, basically.
Okay, a pause is good. The planned pause is very important. That's not the answer I'm looking for in this question, but if I know it's going to make somebody uncomfortable, what do you do?
I might talk about myself.
Okay.
How I would approach the situation.
Okay. I'm glad that you're trying to be reasonably smart here, meaning like, give a good scenario. That's not what I'm looking for, but that's a good guess. Jen, I know you know this one.
Lower your voice.
Lower your voice. What else?
And be really sweet.
Okay.
Smile.
Smile. There you go. Right. If you're going to ask a tough question, don't raise your voice at all. At all. And why do I say smile? Because if you're like me, I do a lot of nonverbal communication, right? And if you're like me, right, there's a term. I thought I saw some kids. You're going to want to mute this. Okay. I have this thing, these young kids call it resting bitch face. I have that. Okay. I look angry all the time. Unless I show my pearly whites, my kids always think I'm mad. That's just how I look. I'm sorry. God made me like that. Right. So if I'm at the kitchen table or the Zoom appointment and I have my normal face, it makes people uncomfortable. I can deal with it. I live with it. Right. I thought I didn't, but it's been confirmed many times over that I have that face. Right. So I don't want to raise my voice when I ask a tough question. Always remember that. And I don't want to give a scowl because the appointment is not going the way I thought it would go. I think I understand what you mean. You're saying that your living expenses are so high that there is nothing left over for life insurance premiums. Does that sound about right? If it takes your whole income for your family to live now, what are they going to do with little or no income after you're gone? Say it very nicely, sweetly. Like I could say this in a very mean way, right? If it takes your whole income for your family to live now, what are they going to do with little or no income after you're gone? I didn't say it that differently, but you could hear it. I'm not going to get a close that way. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be firm. It's a legitimate question. You can't afford $75 a month. You're alive. You're working. You have an income. What's going to happen if you die? How could your family afford this standard of living? It's impossible. You need life insurance. I don't say it like that. That's my thought process. And that's the meaning behind all these questions. Now, and I missed the first part of this question, and I'm sorry, I'll find it and add it in. It says, usually when we discuss things we can't afford, we're talking about necessities, not luxuries. Let's review your budget. And I'll bet we can find a lot of things that are less important than a college education for your children or your family's ability to continue living in a way they are accustomed to in the event of your premature death. Great statement there. And remember, a client's not changing their mind. They just need new information, new questions. That's why you have to have a whole arsenal of weapons. You have to have a lot of tools in your toolbox. If your father were to say to you, son, I'm flat broke, can you give me $3 a day to live on? What would you tell him? Would you give it to him? Of course you would. Can't you see that's what we're talking about here? If you would do that for your father, why wouldn't you do that for your widow and kids? Oh, this is the, sorry, this, I guess I typed it twice. When we say we can't afford something, aren't we usually speaking of luxuries? But life insurance is no luxury. It represents food, clothing, shelter, education, and basic income for your family if something should happen to you. When we say we can't afford something, aren't we usually speaking of luxuries? But life insurance is no luxury. It represents food, clothing, shelter, education, and basic income for your family if something should happen to you. Can your family afford to be without this protection? Can your family afford to be without income if something should happen to you? This plan represents only a few dollars a week. In terms of things in your family would have to do without, would you agree? Should say, wouldn't you agree this is a small sacrifice to make? Like most people, you have the normal number of current debts, unpaid bills, and the like. But wouldn't they still have to be paid if you die? And isn't your spouse the one who would have to pay them? Well, then don't you want to make sure that after paying off your obligations, your spouse will have an income that's enough to live on? They say they want to think it over. I encourage you to think it over. However, I recommend that you become insured while you're thinking about it. It will take 4 to 6 weeks to issue the policy. Let's complete the application and bind the coverage today. This way, your family will be protected while you're thinking about the coverage. This might be the best question in all of the questions, okay? Let me ask you a question. If you could have it for nothing, would you take it? Well, I guess what you really want to think about is how much you can set aside for this plan. Isn't that true? If I ask you to set aside $1 per month, you will say that was no problem, right? However, if I ask you to say set aside $100 a month, you'll probably say it's a problem. Now use a high number, right? If they have a big budget, $200, whatever they say, right? Well, there must be somewhere between $1 and $100 you can set aside. I mean, if they say $1's fine and $100's too much, you can find an amount. And you can always get a close. That's all right. I want to think it over. That's all right. But while you're thinking it over, there's someone else who has some thinking to do, has some thinking too. My company's underwriting department. It won't do much good to give this a lot of thought only to discover that my company has come up with some negative underwriting. Let's make sure you have something concrete to think about by arranging a medical exam for you today, right? Or ordering the medical exam or starting the health background check, whatever you want to say. Let's think, this is a great one too. Let's think it over together. Perhaps there's something that I didn't fully explain. It's easier for you to decide while I'm here to answer your questions and while all the facts are fresh in your mind. Let me suggest this. It takes several weeks to find out whether the company can offer you this plan. Let's find out if you can qualify. While you're thinking about it, give me a check for the first month's premium. And the worst that can happen is that you'll receive 2 months of protection for 1 month's premium. Let's go ahead with this, okay? Okay, now, these questions, although when I read it like this, and I've isolated these questions, and some of these are your final questions, some are the absolute dead last questions before you move into the close. These questions should not be hard to ask, okay? One, because you believe in your product. You know what it does. You know they need it. Your job is to protect dependents. All the stuff I said this week and last week. But there's another reasoning behind that these questions should be easy to ask, okay? Now, this is going to be hard to guess. I hope someone guesses it. But why do you think that these questions should, even though I'm isolating them, I'm reading them, there is some awkwardness here. Why should these not be hard to ask? Understanding where they take place in the process. Post to the chat. Because your health is never guaranteed. Okay. You want them to make a choice that is good for them. Not allowing them to put it on the back burner. So, Jen, let me ask you. Throughout the course of your presentation, are there some times where you don't get to the end of the presentation?
Yes, sometimes.
And why would someone not? Why would you not actually get to the end of the presentation?
Because I feel like they're just a brick or they're just not getting it.
And how do you know that?
Their responses are coming back with a negative tone and ego. I'm kind of like a know-it-all. Even if you're asking straightforward questions, they're not trying to answer it.
Yeah, they didn't answer the questions correctly. So you know, sometimes you don't always get to the end of the presentation, right? So remember, these questions are coming at the end. They've already answered most of them right. They already said that they wanted their family standard of living to be better. They've already told you everything you needed to hear. These are you're not opening up with this question. I want everybody to understand that. This is, they need that little nudge at the end to what? Take action. Take action is what? Write the check. I know you guys don't understand what writing the check is. Writing a check. That's what we used to say. Writing a check. Sending the money. Submitting the final application to get the money out of their account. They've already said everything. They've already said, I waste money. I want to protect my family. I feel underinsured. You know, I can commit to setting aside money every month. But at the very end, they get tense. Is that okay? Yes, that happens a lot. People go through the presentation. The presentation is great. It's very common sense questions. They get through it. And at the end, they need a nudge. They need a close. They need a great closer right there to say, make me feel better about this decision. Make me feel great about this purchase. Show me your belief in what you're doing. And that's where all this comes out. Mr. and Miss, you're saying it through questions because you have to say it through questions. This is the best investment of this $150 a month, $120 a month, is setting your family up, creating a great foundation for your financial plan right here. I know you want to think about it. I know you want to talk it over. I know you haven't died yet. I know you weren't prepared to buy anything tonight. But we've gone through this great presentation and you've shown me that you care about your family, you're responsible, you have money to spend, let's get it started. And you do it with these final closing questions. These aren't the beginning questions, these are the end questions. You've already gone through the entire process and you've probably already asked 20 to 30 questions and gotten great commitments so far. These are just the fine. This is just the icing, man. Now, here's the thing, and we don't do this a lot, but you should do it. You know, I always tell this when I have people train on objections. You know, I want to do research. I want to think it over. I can't afford it. Those are the big ones. So you got to have a handful for each one of those. And you got to have questions that work right for you. You got to have stories. You got to do these things throughout the presentation. But at the very end, you have to know these questions. And, you know, get with a partner, get with somebody, get with, you know, somebody on your team. Maybe, you know, some of you guys, I know you guys do stuff together. You have your own team meetings and things like that. Go over some of these questions. Make sure people understand what the questions are asking and they know all the words. Right? I think that, and I'll figure out what that ticking sound is. It's coming from my computer. I don't know what it is, but let me ask you a question. If you could have it for nothing, would you take it? Well, I guess what you really want to think about is how much you can set aside for this plan. Isn't that true? If I ask you to set aside $1 per month, you will say that was no problem. However, if I ask you to set aside $100 a month, you would probably say it was a problem, right? Well, there must be somewhere between $1 and $100 you can set aside. See, like people know this about me that I work with. When they go on appointments, say like Jen, for example, when she goes on appointments and she misses a close, she has to be able to defend why she missed it. What happened? Where did you get to in the presentation? What stopped you? If she got to the end and she couldn't close it and she ran a quote and all this stuff, I'll ask her, what did they say? What couldn't you overcome? And then she'll tell me, and she has to remember. And then I'll say, well, why didn't you use this close or this close or this close? And then obviously it's very easy. I wasn't there. I'm saying this hindsight, but it'll give her the thought process. Yes, I should have used this close, or this is another close, or what did you not do? And if you start going out there and going on tons of appointments and getting beat up out there and using all the closes, you'll become a master closer. It's inevitable.